Almost 90% of Americans say they save or plan to save for short-term goals, but many are still making the same money mistake. Treating cash like location does not matter. In March 2026, the average U.S. savings account was paying just 0.39%, while inflation was running at 3.3%. That is not safety, that is slow erosion. This is why the issue lands so hard in ordinary life. You are not just trying to save more. You are trying to survive rent that keeps rising, groceries that never fully go back down, and fuel costs that can jump without warning. In March 2026 alone, gasoline prices surged 21.2% in a single month, and shelter was still up 3.0% over the year. So when your emergency money sits in an account earning next to nothing, every month becomes a quiet transfer of buying power away from you. And when something breaks, the weakness shows immediately. Bankrate's 2026 Emergency Savings Report found only 30% of Americans said they would pay a $1,000 emergency from savings, and only 46% said they had enough emergency savings to cover 3 months of expenses. Nearly 1 in 4 said they had no emergency savings at all. That means the difference between "I'm fine" and "put it on the card" is often one repair bill. The mistake did not come from stupidity, it came from habit. For years, Americans were trained to think of cash in simple categories: checking for bills, savings for safety, investing for later. That mental map made sense when rates were low everywhere and inflation was quieter. But the last few years broke that old logic. Rates moved, prices moved, credit costs exploded. Consumer surveys now show many people still have not updated their cash strategy to match the new environment. Vanguard found 60% of Americans do not fully understand how interest rates affect their savings, and 57% said their savings were earning less than 3%. So the old "at least I'm saving something" mindset stopped being enough, because now the gap between a lazy cash setup and a smart one is no longer trivial. It is measurable. Here's how it works in plain English. Most people think cash is cash. It is not. Cash is more like food in different containers. One container keeps it fresh, another leaves it going stale on the counter. If your money sits in checking at roughly 0.07% or savings at roughly 0.39%, while prices rise 3.3%, that cash is losing real value. And if you also carry credit card debt, the math gets uglier. The Federal Reserve data showed average credit card interest on all accounts at 21.00% in February 2026. So you can have one part of your balance sheet crawling uphill while another is rolling backward off a cliff. That is the mistake. Not simply not investing, and not just not budgeting. It is leaving short-term money in weak accounts, while expensive debt or inflation does the real compounding. Once that starts, the chain reaction is predictable. First, your emergency fund grows too slowly, then a real-world hit lands: tires, dental work, travel for family, a missed paycheck, then the card takes the hit. Then interest starts feeding on interest. Picture a household with $8,000 sitting in a low-yield savings account and a $6,000 revolving card balance. At 0.39%, that cash earns about $31 in a year before tax. At 21%, that card balance can cost roughly $1,260 over a year if it is carried. Same family, same month, same system. One side earns lunch money, the other side charges rent. That is why so many people feel like they are doing the responsible thing and still falling behind. They are saving, just inefficiently. The common misunderstanding is that the big money mistake is always overspending. Sometimes it is, but that explanation is too lazy. The deeper problem is balance sheet design. The Fed's 2024 Household Well-Being Report found 55% of adults said they had set aside 3 months of emergency savings. That sounds decent until you remember the same report also showed only 63% said they would cover a $400 emergency expense with cash or the equivalent. Bankrate's newer survey paints an even shakier picture. In other words, a lot of households are not one disaster away from ruin, but they are much closer to fragility than the headline numbers suggest. The real reveal is this: the safest-looking money in your life can be the least productive part of it. And in a high-cost, high-rate environment, that is not a small optimization problem. It is a resilience problem. First, split your cash by job. Keep only true bill-paying cash in checking. Move emergency cash and near-term reserves into a competitive high-yield savings account, money market fund, or short Treasury ladder. The point is not to chase risk. The point is to stop accepting near-zero returns by default. FDIC data shows how low average deposit rates still are, while recent Treasury bill auctions have been far higher. Second, stop looking at savings and debt separately. If you are carrying revolving card debt at around 21%, that rate is your financial emergency. Keep a minimal cash buffer so you do not create new chaos, but after that, every extra dollar should be judged against the cost of the debt. A guaranteed 21% drag is harder to outrun than most people admit. Third, build a target that is concrete, not emotional. Save more is useless. Pick one number, 1 month of expenses, then 3. Automate it. If your income is unstable, build cash first. If your income is steady and you already have a starter buffer, attack the highest interest debt. Bankrate found only about 1 in 5 people increased emergency savings last year. That means simple automation is still an edge because most people never set the system up. The danger is not just being broke. The danger is looking stable while the structure underneath is weaker than you think. A low-yield account feels responsible. A minimum payment feels manageable. A quiet month feels like recovery. But if your cash is decaying, your debt is compounding, and your buffer is thin, you are not standing still. You are drifting. The money mistake is not that Americans forgot to save. It is that too many still think where cash sits does not matter. Now it does, more than most people realize.